Hi, Wonder Class, and welcome to our Lesson 3 in History. So in today's lesson, we are going to be exploring what ancient Rome was like. So what Rome was like in the olden days. Let's have a look. So Rome is the capital city of Italy. So these are some just facts and factual information about ancient Rome. So Rome is the capital city of Italy. So who were the Romans? The ancient Roman civilization began in 753 BC when King Romulus founded the city of Rome, naming it after himself, Rome Romulus. Over the next 1,000 years, this small city grew into a large empire. The ancient Romans became one of the most influential civilizations in history, conquering areas in Europe, Africa, and Asia. So, the language which was spoken in Rome during the ancient Roman times was called Latin. What made the Romans so powerful? So you might have heard before that the Romans were a very powerful group of people. So the Romans had a very well-organized army which allowed them to conquer other countries. The Roman army was one of the most successful armies in history and far more advanced than any other army at the time. So that's what made them really, really powerful. How was the army organized? You might be wondering. So the Roman army was made up of legions which had nearly 5,000 men each. Legions were organized in a very specific way. So 8 men were put in a group called a tent. 10 tents were put together to form a century of 80 men. A centurion was in charge of the century. 6 centuries were put together to form a cohort of 480 men. The 10 cohorts were put together to form a legion. And Roman soldiers had to be very, very tough and highly trained. They had to walk for long distances to battles carrying heavy equipment such as weapons, tents, and food. So if we were at school, we would definitely be able to have a feel of the type of weapons that they used. So the swords, they're very heavy, and also the shields, they're also very, very heavy. So what did the Romans invent? So you might already know that the Romans were known for their inventions. So let's find out what, or some of the things that the Romans did invent. So the Romans invented concrete. So concrete was invented by the Romans to help make their buildings stronger and easier to build. So you might recognize this picture below, which is the picture of the Colosseum. It is thanks to Roman concrete that so many of Rome's most famous buildings are still standing today, such as the Colosseum. So Romans invented concrete. The newspaper, that's an interesting one. Newspapers were first invented by the Romans around the year 131 BC. The first newspapers were written on metal or stone and posted in public areas for people to read. They were called the Acta, which means daily acts. Another thing which the Romans invented was books. Books were invented by Romans too. Before this, everything was written on clay or scrolls. The Romans were the first to bind the pages together. So binding the pages means it's a way of forming the pages that they stay together. So each time you turn the book, the pages are together. And also the Romans invented the calendar. You might see calendars in your homes, in your kitchens, around your house, which helps to keep your daily life very organized. So the calendar that we use today is based very solely on the one that was developed by the Romans. So if you look to the left of the screen, you can see a Roman calendar. There's a picture. And if you look to the right of the screen, you will also be able to see a calendar that we use in the modern day now. The Julian calendar, named after Julius Caesar, who developed it, split the year into 12 months, giving each month a name, such as Augustus, or it should say August, September, or July, which also goes by the names of Roman emperors Augustus and Julius. Who ruled Rome? So ancient Rome began as a kingdom, just like the United Kingdom, and was ruled over by kings for 240 years. So if you remember, we spoke about a kingdom is ruled by a king or a queen. So it then became a republic. This means that it was run by elected officials called senators, and that they were there for the constitution, agreeing how the public should be run. So the senators agreed how the republic, meaning how Rome was to be run during times of ancient Rome. Nearly 500 years later, Rome became an empire and was ruled over by an emperor, and his name was um, Caesar Augustus. He was the first Roman emperor. Emperors had almost complete control over the whole of the empire, so the whole of ancient Rome. Who was Boudica? So she was a very key figure during the ancient Roman times. So Boudica was the queen of the Iceni tribe, which was the name of a tribe at the time. Boudica led her army against the Romans. She was brave and strong, just like her soldiers. She lived many years ago, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information on her. There are objects from the past to help us understand a bit about her story. As you can see, I only have a picture of her in a cartoon version because there isn't actually a real life picture of her. Did you know? Her name comes from the word Buddha, which also means victory. Victory means to win something. There are no pictures of Boudica, so we don't know what she looked like. Tacitus said that she had long red hair that hung below her waist, which also represents the picture in the previous part of the video. Boudica's soldiers painted themselves blue to make themselves look more frightening. So, fascinating Roman facts. The Romans spoke Latin and Greek as their official language, although with such a large empire, there were also many other languages that were spoken. The Romans ate many foods we would consider strange today, such as parrots, oh my gosh, peacock tongue, and garum. Garum was a condiment that was very popular in ancient Rome. It was used like ketchup, so a condiment is like ketchup or mayonnaise, and it was added to all sorts of savory dishes. It was made by crushing and fermenting fish intestines. That's interesting. I do wonder how that might taste. The Romans had lots of uses for urine. They used it to wash their clothes, to tan leather, and even to whiten their teeth. How weird. The Romans built about 55,000 miles of roads across the empire. They built very strange roads, many which are still used today. Rich Romans often ate lying down. They would recline on the sofas, so meaning they would push their sofas back, while the slaves or servants served them their food. Here are some general facts on the Romans. So Rome was founded in 753 BC by its first king Romulus. It grew into a rich and powerful city during the next few hundred years. Roman legends say that Romulus had a twin brother called Remus. As babies, they were abandoned in an area which later became Rome. A she-wolf found and raised them, but when they grew up, Romulus fought and killed Remus and became the first ruler of Rome. That's an ancient Roman story. The Romans built such a huge empire and conquered new lands thanks to their strong army. The Roman army could march up to 40 kilometers a day. That's a lot of marching and a lot of kilometers. To bring water to their cities, the clever Romans built aqueducts. So as we learned in yesterday's lesson through our definitions, a system of channels and bridges to transport water for public baths and toilets. And as you saw yesterday as well, the public baths were really massive. The Romans didn't spend all of their time fighting. They were amazing architects and engineers too. They built roads and walls, things that we now take for granted. So all of these things, like roads, walls, concrete, books, calendars, these are the things that the Romans invented, which we still have today. So this is your task for today's lesson. You've got 3 tasks. So using the template, which I will just show you in a minute, or you can make your own, complete the sections about all of the information of ancient Rome. Your second task is to see if you can include some of the keywords in your writing that we learned about yesterday. And finally, please proofread and check your presentation and spelling before posting your work onto Tapestry. So I know it's different because you're working from home, but really try your best to make sure you're still practicing your neat and your best handwriting, your best spelling, and you're really going back through the video, pausing it, taking the information you need and using and writing it down in your own words. So if I click onto the next slide, you can see, and you can pause it if you need to. This is a worksheet which I made for us if we were at school, but obviously we're not. So you can use this as a template to complete your work, or you can just finish it off. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Good luck doing your work. See you later.